This week on Jerusalem Dateline, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu forms a new government, but will it last? Also, an Israeli medical team and CBN's disaster relief bring desperately needed help to the devastated nation of Nepal after their worst earthquake in years. Plus, clean and green. See how Israel is a world leader in green technology. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu formed a new coalition just hours before his midnight deadline. It's a razor-thin majority, with the government controlling just 61 of the 120 seats in parliament. That slim lead makes it extremely vulnerable, and one or two defections could bring it down. Though Abraham Diskin of the Hebrew University says it just might last.
I'm not so sure that 61 members cabinet or coalition is less stable than a 67 members coalition. Maybe quite the opposite. There is going to be a problem for the whip of the coalition to control all the votes, etc. It's not going to be that simple, but it is possible. It's not necessarily a shaky government.
Yet Diskin believes the current coalition government will change soon, and Netanyahu may invite his leading opposition party, the Zionist camp, to form a national unity government.
I'm almost sure that there will be a change in the formation of the government, and probably what we're going to have then is at least some of the members, maybe all of the members of the Zionist camp led by Herzog and the Labour Party, they will join the coalition. Maybe under such circumstances, the Jewish Home, headed by Bennett, will have to defect.
Some Israelis believe a national unity government will be more stable and necessary to face the threat of Iran. In the meantime, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said that Tehran would not accept nuclear negotiations under the shadow of threats, and urged Iran's negotiators not to cave in to coercion at the negotiating table. Khamenei's remarks came apparently in response to comments made by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry on Israel's Channel 10, where he tried to calm Israeli fears over the Iranian nuclear deal. Kerry said in the interview that the deal wouldn't affect American options to counter any possible effort by Iran to build atomic weapons, and that we will have inspectors in there every single day. That is not a 10-year deal, he said. That is forever. And the new government will be sworn in next Wednesday. Earlier this week, thousands of Israelis of Ethiopian descent took to the streets of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and protested against racism and discrimination. The demonstrations came after a video surfaced where two border policemen beat up an Ethiopian IDF soldier. Israeli Prime Minister met with the soldier and promised to address the discrimination many Ethiopians suffer in Israeli society, even by the deputy mayor of Tel Aviv.
Everyone who attended the protest yesterday has experienced at one point in his life humiliation based on nothing but skin color. I, the deputy mayor of Tel Aviv, can tell you about that myself. I came to attend an event here at the square, and a policewoman stood at the entrance and asked me who I was. I replied, I'm the deputy mayor of Tel Aviv, and I need to enter the VIP section. She told me, it's good that you didn't find yourself a fancier title and didn't let me in.
Baruch Ron says the Ethiopian community wants real change.
If there were real measures, and we felt our claims and requests were being handled seriously, there wouldn't be a need to demonstrate. If we feel they are stalling, I believe we will be back demonstrating here.
The death toll in Nepal is now more than 7,000 after the recent devastating earthquake. As Gary Lane reports, help is coming from around the world, including teams from Israel and CBN Disaster Relief.
It was a miraculous rescue in Kathmandu. When a team of first responders from Israel arrived on the scene of this collapsed hotel building, they discovered someone was possibly trapped inside. French rescuers brought in high-tech sound equipment that detected breathing and a heartbeat beneath the rubble. Norwegian rescuers joined in. 8 hours later, Krishna Devi Kadka was freed from the concrete that had encapsulated her for 5 days. The international rescue effort gave Nepalis hope that their missing loved ones may still be alive 1 week after the earthquake. The Israel rescuers were not the only Israelis among the first responders here in Nepal. Members of the Israeli Defense Forces arrived within hours after the earthquake and set up a sophisticated mobile mass unit to treat injured Nepalis. And 2 Israeli doctors have joined the CBN disaster relief team in Kathmandu, providing much-needed medical treatment.
Israelis are warm people, and they usually like to do and not to talk. So I see it many times that Israelis react very quickly. And actually Nepal has a very special place in the heart of many Israelis.
The doctors treated infected wounds, and many people with pneumonia and upper respiratory infections received medication. This woman was ill. Her condition got worse after the earthquake. She had no one to turn to for help.
I'm very happy with the team that came by today. They gave me medicine and I had the opportunity to meet the team members. I'm really thankful.
The CBN relief effort here in Nepal is truly an international one. It's not just the Israeli doctors that are providing medical care, but Dr. Carla here is from CBN Indonesia. She's here checking hearts, checking the health of the people, seeing what their needs are. We have other team members from other countries. We have Nepal represented here. We also have CBN India and the United States.
Because of our offices in around the world, we're able to quickly respond to disasters immediately, effectively, not having to send a team from America over a period of time. They can fly usually within an hour or 2 hours and be on the ground, on the scene to assist our partners in the country, which they've done in Nepal.
It's not only international that we work with Indians and Indonesian doctors and Americans and people from all over the world, but it's also interreligious, and I think it is very special.
In addition to the medical care, CBN has provided food for the hungry and tarps and mattresses for the homeless and displaced. When natural disasters like the Nepal earthquake strike and wreak havoc on a nation, Christians and Jews are often first responders.
You know, coming and being able to show that we care, support, allows us to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ. CBN here has come with the presence to make a long-term sustainable impact. Their lives have been totally destroyed. They've been shaken. This earthquake has rattled the entire nation.
Gary Lane, CBN News, Kathmandu, Nepal.
American evangelicals have been faithful supporters of the Jewish state, but some worry that may be changing. When we come back, we hear from an organization that is working to make a case for defending and supporting Israel. Welcome back. As the world continues to isolate Israel, American evangelicals are strong supporters of the Jewish state. But some fear that support could be quietly eroding. CBN's Mark Martin spoke with Mark Tooley, president of the Institute for Religion and Democracy. He says they're taking steps to clarify why Israel should be defended.
Evangelicals are among the strongest supporters of Israel, so why do we need to make the Christian case for the Jewish state?
Well, you're right. Polls show that evangelicals, sometimes even more than American Jews, are the most supportive religious demographic for Israel. But there is a growing unfortunate trend among some evangelicals, especially more elite evangelicals, against Israel, or at least a more neutralist stance towards Israel. So the same arguments that may have worked among, or assumptions that may have been prevalent among evangelicals 20 and 30 years ago no longer prevail, especially among young evangelicals. And so some new arguments need to be put forward to make the case for Israel.
Well, what's behind this shift of evangelical schools and missions agencies away from Israel?
Well, various reasons. Some of it is just a little bit psychological. You know, the great old figures of religious conservatism have largely passed from the scene, who were prominent back in the 70s and 80s. And of course, they were very, very strongly Israel, but controversial. And so the succeeding generation of some evangelical leaders are more reluctant to enter into that controversy and prefer to focus on other issues. Also, there is a trend among many of the evangelical university campuses and in some of the seminaries that we want to strike a new tone We don't want to be typecast as automatically pro-Israel. We're going to be, for example, a slogan that's popular now is pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, pro-peace, pro-Jesus, which sounds wonderful, but the default result of that kind of slogan is evangelicals are no longer supporting Israel, and America, as a result, becomes less of a reliable ally for Israel.
So what else will be the impact of this shift?
Well, Israel justifiably looks to America as its strongest, biggest, and most important strategic ally in a world that is largely hostile to Israel and tragically hostile to the Jewish people. And a large part of a strong American support for Israel is, of course, the fact that the 25 or 30% of Americans who are in the evangelical tradition tend to be overwhelmingly pro-Israel. So if you can compromise or dilute or neutralize strong traditional evangelical support for Israel, potentially you can begin to shift America in a more neutral or less supportive stance towards Israel, more in the direction of, say, many of the European nations, which would have potentially tragic consequences for Israel and for the overall situation in the Middle East.
Why should Christians continue to support Israel?
Well, prudential arguments would include the fact that Israel is a democracy, it's pro-American, it gives equal rights and equal protection under the law to all people. It's the only country right now in the Middle East that is a safe place for Christians. It's the only country in the Middle East where the Christian population is growing. Those are the prudential arguments that should appeal to people across the board, whether they're Christian or not, if you believe in democracy and freedom and human rights. The theological arguments would include that there is an organic connection between Christianity and Judaism, between Christians and the Jewish people, and there is an organic connection between the Jewish people and the land of their ancestors, and you cannot divorce that connection without diminishing who the Jewish people are and where they have come from.
All right, Mark Tooley, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your insights.
Appreciate it.
Making sure that the state of Israel remains in existence involves taking good care of the land. And that's why Israelis have developed some of the world's most advanced green technologies. We'll show you some when we come back. Israel has been one of the world's top innovators when it comes to improving the environment. They've planted millions of trees and made the deserts bloom. But being green is nothing new for Israelis. The Jewish people were pioneering clean and green technology even before Israel became a state.
To many people, Israel is a place of Bible stories and ancient ruins.
In hundreds of archaeological digs like this one, Israelis are carefully preserving their past, but they're also keeping an eye on the future. And not just their future, the future of the world.
One of the Jewish commandments is tikkun olam, which means, translation to English, is to repair the world under God, to make the world a better place.
I see a direct correlation between our belief in tikkun olam and this incredible explosion of activity and innovation in Startup Nation.
Today, the world is focused on saving the environment, but Israelis were green long before it was popular, about a century before.
It's part of the Zionism dream to create a green land, a green country, and actually with time, with experience and research, we have studied how to do it.
The prophet Isaiah wrote about a time when the desert would rejoice and blossom as a rose. To Israelis, that's more than an ancient prophecy. It's a commandment.
Israel is a tiny state. Look at a map of our region. We use always to joke, there's not even enough place on the map to write the name of Israel. So we had to conserve it, to keep it, to maintain it. This is what we have.
To the early settlers in Israel, going green meant planting trees, and they started in the Negev desert, a place that gets only 1 to 7 inches of rain a year. In the 1940s, Jerusalem was still under Arab control, and Israel's first prime minister, David Ben-Gurion, believed that the Negev was the future of Israel. So he ordered the creation of a man-made forest there. But his team of scientists said it couldn't be done. Ben-Gurion's response? No problem. We'll get new scientists. The prime minister got his new scientists, and the Negev desert began to blossom. Today, the Yatir forest has more than 4 million trees, including carob, pine, olive, and fig.
Israel is amongst the fewest countries in the world that at the end of the 20th century, there are much more trees than were at the beginning of this century. Till now, we have planted over 240 million trees, which is a nice number to this small country.
In the center of the forest is a vineyard, planted on the ruins of another one that existed here 2,000 years ago. Scientists researched the best plants to grow in the Negev, and one of their sources was the Bible.
There are plenty of archaeological ruins everywhere. Water cisterns, dams, terraces, everywhere. And we have started with reconstruction of some of these ancient farms. We have planted biblical trees, and the trees are surviving without additional irrigation by collecting runoff water, the same systems that our forefathers did 2,000 years ago.
The trees not only produce fruit, they also clean the environment by absorbing carbon dioxide. Studies show that planting similar forest on just 12% of the world's arid land would reduce carbon in the atmosphere by a gigaton a year. That's equal to the carbon output of 1,000 coal plants. Today, scientists from around the world come to Israel to study the Yatir forest.
We like to serve. We are proud to serve all our achievements to other countries. And of course, we want to share our knowledge and study from other countries' experience.
Israelis are not only working to protect the environment, they're also looking for new ways to keep the country running without oil.
Israel itself, it's a beautiful country, a country definitely worth visiting with tremendous, lush, interesting areas, but we don't have the traditional gold mines and massive oil and diamonds. We basically have a country of human resources rather than natural resources. So we very much value what little we have.
Up next, see what makes Israel a world leader in innovation, from solar farms to a cardboard bicycle. Welcome back. It sounds strange, but a cardboard bicycle is not only an example of Israel's creative revolution, but some believe evidence of how the story of the Bible and His chosen people is coming to life in our time.
Israel's greatest natural resource, sun.
We do have a lot of sun here. It's a hot place, so we produce solar energy.
For much of the year, the sun beats down on a land that's mostly desert. But what some might see as a liability, Israel has turned into an advantage. Israelis have been using rooftop solar panels since the 1950s, when they were still unheard of in the rest of the world.
90% of Israeli homes have a solar water heater. There's nowhere else in the world that has that kind of thing.
In 2011, Israel's first commercial solar field was completed in the southern Arava Valley. The company, Arava Power, now has 9 other fields under construction and plans for 40 more energy projects in Israel over the next 3 years. Their goal is to supply 1/10 of Israel's power. The company's founders are now building solar fields in several third world countries like Haiti, Ecuador, and Rwanda. The solar field in Rwanda should be up and running by the end of 2013 and will provide 8% of Rwanda's energy.
Israel has been a leader in clean technology from the beginning. Part of it also is that our neighbors have had a lot of oil and have sort of corrupted the world economic system and the world political system and used it unfairly to impose, I think, sometimes harmful ideologies. And therefore, if Israel can fight the world dependence on oil, what would be a better thing than that?
In 2008, an avid biker named Azar Gaffney had an idea.
Suddenly it just struck my mind. Why not to make a bicycle out of cardboard? Soon after, I talked to 3 engineers, which I really highly appreciate, and they said, it's impossible. There's no way it can be done. While I was eating with my wife one day, she noticed that I'm a little bit disturbed. I told her all the things about the engineers I went to and all the things that they said about it's impossible. And then she looked at me. And then she said, I know you. If you're not going to try it, then you're going to drive yourself crazy. Then you're going to drive me crazy. Then you're going to drive the entire family crazy. So just go ahead and try it.
4 years and 6 prototypes later, the cardboard bicycle was ready to ride. The finished bike weighs in at just 20 pounds, and yet it can hold a 500-pound rider. And unlike regular cardboard, it's completely waterproof. Mass production on the bike will start in late 2013. It'll cost about $9 to make and sell for around $60.
Where do you get this from? What right do you have to dream that way? We're people of dreams. It's all through the Bible. That's always been our methodology, if you will, in the Jewish people. God gives us dreams. It's for man to interpret them and man to experience them. And that's really the roots, I think, of much of our innovation. The fact that we're so flourishing here is a sign that this was God's will, that this is what was supposed to happen. This is the plan. We're good people. We're family-oriented people. We have an incredible army and society. I think that we have just begun to figure out that we have to tell our story about who we are rather than engage in constant bickering over the Middle East conflict. We have to go convey what the beauty of Israel is.
The story of the Jewish people here in Israel is one of the miracles of our time. Well, that's it for this edition. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook for more updates. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.